What is going on, everybody out there? Fascinating graveyard. Today, we're at the Forest Lawn Cemetery here in Glendale, California. We're going to visit the final resting place of Jack Barry. He was a game show host with a very interesting story. And without further ado, let's get walking. Jack Barry was born on March 20th, 1918 in Lindenhurst, New York. And after graduating the Wharton University School of Finance and Commerce, he would quickly get a job in the field that he's looking for gainful employment in, which is the entertainment industry. And at this AM radio station in New York, he would meet a man by the name of Dan Enright, and together, they would develop a very close business / friendship. And boy, they would get into quite a bit of hot water together. And it goes as such. So they would quickly become very, very successful in their partnerships. Now, they were interested in developing radio programming. In 1946, they developed a radio show called Juvenile Jury. So the premise of this show, and I will say it's quite clever. The premise is you get about 6 or 7 children, all under the age of 10. So you would bring in another kid who was having problems, like maybe he's getting bullied at school, or he likes a girl and he doesn't know what to say to her, whatever. So these kids would give the answers as to how they should rectify whatever problem that they have. Now, the following year, 1947, Juvenile Jury, it becomes a television program. As a matter of fact, it's the first commercially supported network show. However, at the time, there's very, 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 very few television sets, but that would quickly change in the next 2 to 3 years. So this show would be on radio and TV from 1947 to 1954. However, during a taping of a show, it came out that, some of the children were being coached as to what to say. There was a 4-year-old juror who, when Jack, asked her, how would you handle little Timmy's problem? She said, quote, well, my mommy told me to say this, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And the audience is like, what the hell is going on here? Now, Jack Barry is trying to reassure the audience that everything is on the up and up, but it's not. It's not. No, that some of those kids, they are being told how to answer whatever problems that the kids are coming up with. So this little scandal, if you will, this would be the first scandal that would kind of tar his image, but the worst is yet to come. So in 1953, Jack and Dan, they develop a TV program called Winky Dink and You. Okay, I've heard of the name before, but reading on this story, this is the first time that I've watched an episode and wondered what it was. Again, this guy Jack Barry, there's a reason why I wanted to talk about him and visit his grave. He's a very clever guy. Very, very clever. So Winky Dink and You was Jack Barry and his assistant, Mr. Bungle. And it was labeled as the first interactive TV show. Now get this. This is what I love about this part of the story. So the interactive part came from a set of crowns that they would sell in department stores and toy stores around the country, because Winky Dink and You is insanely popular. So you would buy these crowns and it would come with this vinyl, like plastic sheet. And during certain parts of the show, you would, they would tell you, okay, kids, now put your vinyl plastic on the TV set. So through the power of electricity, static electricity, whatever, you would throw this vinyl plastic on the screen, and you would basically connect the dots on the screen to whatever problem that they came upon. For instance, if there's a lion that escaped from the zoo, they would tell you to draw a cage to trap that lion in. Or if he's trying to get past a bridge, then you would, connect the dots and draw a bridge to help him proceed through the story. Very, very clever. Here's what makes me want to leg drop the entire society when I hear stories like this. So that show came under fire, not because of any kind of fibbing or lying or anything like that, but get this, because people in the 1950s, they were obviously really, really bored. There was a small, but whatever size, letter writing campaign writing to the producers of the TV show that they were sad because they couldn't afford the cost of the crowns and the vinyl plastic, which was 50 cents, so that their kids could participate in this interactive TV show. So they kind of did away with the crowns, and I'm like, listen, I don't know, how much was 50 cents back in 1955? I mean, what was it like? What would be like 10, 15 bucks or something like that? I don't know. Man, when I hear stories like that, it makes me want to leg drop. I'm talking about just, Hulk Hogan leg drop, right? Just, yeah. So that show would end in 1957. So it was on for about 4 years. Pretty clever TV show. Later on, a man named William Evans would go on to sue Barry and Enright, claiming that Juvenile Jury was his idea. He claims that he submitted his idea, which was Juvenile Jury, to a TV station, WGN, and 2 months later, not only did they not get back to him, but he starts hearing and watching that idea that he had. Now, he tried to sue for $600,000. Hey, you might as well just go for the gusto, right? But a judge quickly threw out his case when he realized quickly that he was a bald-faced liar. So after Winky Dink and You, after that ends, their next show was Life Begins at 80. What was that about? Well, take Juvenile Jury and reverse it. So instead of a bunch of kids giving advice, it was a bunch of people over the age of 80 who were giving advice to people about their marriage, just life in general, stuff like that. But the best is yet to come. And that would be it would be a game show that actually took the country by storm. It became a phenomenon. Something that has never been seen before, or in my opinion, since. And that was a game show called 21. So the phenomenon is 21. So 21 was a game show that would test the general knowledge of the participants of that show. The two people would step into a booth, they would put on their headphones, and Jack Barry is at his controls, and he's controlling when they're able to hear what's going on in the audience or hear the other person in the other booth, or when they can't hear anything. So basically the game show was you are wagering every question that you're being asked. For instance, Jack would ask a person, all right, so this question is in such and such subject, like history. So you would wager anywhere from 1 to 11 points, depending on how knowledgeable you were on that field. So if I said, okay, so this question is about art, all right, I'll wager 5 points. So if you get the question correct, you get 5 points. If you don't get the question correct, you lose 5 points. And whoever gets to 21 first is the winner. So as long as the other person given a chance to also get to 21 is able to get there, being that they would have to have at least 10 points, because then they would wager 11 points to get to 21. However, there was one problem. See, on the show, when it first began, well, yeah, those guys, Geritol. So, Geritol, they hit these guys up, Enright and Barry, and they said, look, these contestants, they're missing all the answers, they're not very bright, and basically at the time, when you had a lot of old TV shows, and they would be sponsored by, you know, cigarettes or toothpaste or whatever, they were heavily involved in the TV show because they basically paid for the production cost and the airtime of that TV show. So Geritol is doling out a bunch of money to be the sponsor of a program where people are missing the answers. They don't know the answers. It's getting very, very boring. So that would quickly be remedied by one man. Enter Herb Stempel. Now, this guy right here, we're going to do a future video on him, so I don't want to get too involved into that aspect of the story. But to condense the story down, basically, this guy is in on it with the producers, with Dan and Jack. So basically, they're looking for a guy that looks really smart and he's knowledgeable with the answers. Basically, these guys, they're given the answers to the questions beforehand. So Herb Stempel became very, very popular. As a matter of fact, for a time during that TV show's run, he was one of the most recognized faces in the entire country. Now, everything about that show was choreographed. The way the people would answer the questions. I mean, looking back on it now, me watching an episode, it looks so fake. Just how they would just kind of go on with the steps of how they would answer this question. So basically, they have it scripted where this guy, Herb, he's going to lose to a new guy. And we're going to do a video about that, again, like I said, in the future. So after he, quote unquote, loses, Herb, I guess, was promised some kind of a job in lieu of him, you know, losing on this game show. But that job never fell through. And then, you know, he's getting a little bit jealous now because not only is he no longer making any money answering, you know, questions, getting paid $500 a question or whatever, but now they have a fresh new face on this program, and he gets a little jelly. So he approaches a journalist and he says, hey, that game show 21 is rigged. And at first, like, they don't believe him. But quickly, his you know, accusations would become truth. And as a matter of fact, I want to say the Manhattan DA picked up the case, and it went all the way up to having hearings in the Senate about television game shows, whether they were fixed, whether it was considered a form of gambling, which, you know, there was a way where the programmers and the producers, they got around the whole gambling aspect of it. But long story short, yeah, you had people for a couple different television game shows, including Dotto and 21, where they would say, okay, yeah, we admit it. Like it was scripted, it was fixed, it was staged. And so after that, the game show 21 would quickly disappear. It would be canceled all of a sudden. And now Jack Barry is without a job, and now it's like a fall from grace. You have a man that, you know, would come into millions of Americans' television sets into their homes, and they found out that he was lying to them all this time. Now, Jack would later move down to Florida, and now his name is Mud, right? So he would lay low for a while, and eventually, like anything in life, when people, when they make mistakes, and, people, as much as people want to just, talk down about somebody and you're a bum and you're a loser, you're a liar. We really do love a good comeback story. And Jack Barry, he is a good example of just a good comeback story. So eventually, a few years later, I want to say 1976, he links up with Dan again, and they would develop another game show, and this one would be his most successful in terms of legitimacy. It was called Joker's Wild. I want to say the original MC of the show was it was Betty White's husband, Alan. His name escapes me. I should know that name because I visited his grave in Wisconsin. Anyways, you know who I'm talking about. I put it on the screen. So later on, Jack would take over as the host of Joker's Wild. And I want to say he hosted that show for maybe it was about 4 years or so. And he was going to do it for one more year before he retired. Now, in the meantime, between him not being on TV, I want to say he bought a radio station, and that was because he had to see if the FCC were going to give him a license to be able to run a radio station. And he says, if they give me a license, that means that, I'm good to go, and I'm going to try again to get into the television business. And that's what happened. I want to say he bought that radio station. It could have been either in Southern California or in Florida. But anyways, and in the meantime, he was a consultant with producers of other television game shows. So this guy's whole career is just developing these TV game shows. And sadly, he would not live to see his retirement from the Joker's Wild. We go to May 2nd, 1984. We're in Central Park, New York, and Jack Barry, 66 years of age, is going to Central Park to go for a jog. He just got back from visiting one of his kids in Spain. And as he's running in the park, all of a sudden he collapses. And they see him fall to the ground, and they yell for somebody to call 911. By the time the paramedics arrive and rush him to the hospital, there was nothing that they can do. One of TV's brightest stars when it comes to game shows, a legend in his own right, and the mastermind, good or bad, Jack Barry, would sadly die of a massive heart attack. And this is his final resting place right here. Jack Barry, our star. Loved and remembered husband, father, television host. I thought it was just a very interesting story for sure. And like I said, good or bad, he definitely is forever entrenched in television history. I mean, just with that show 21, regardless of it being staged, which it was staged, but regardless of that, a lot of people used to watch that show, and it was one of the most popular TV shows in history. So rest in peace to Mr. Jack Barry, television game show host extraordinaire. Okay, guys, I am out of here. the crows are having a party over there. And, well, I'm going home now. Now, I shouldn't be going home because the sun is still going to be out for another 2 hours, but in Los Angeles, which is, in my personal opinion, it's technically one of the worst cemetery cities in the nation, probably the worst. A lot of cemeteries close at 5 and 6 o'clock, and these guys are about to close. So I'm gonna head out of the gates, and I gotta go over to Burbank and finish up a video that has taken me way too long to finish. So we're gonna go finish that right now. All right, guys, live but not live, still alive by the grace of God. Fascinating graveyard. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.